Hello guys, today I'm going to talk to you about trying to solve quadratic equations. Quadratic equations can be solved using many ways. I'm going to talk about 3 different ways that you can solve them. The first method is going to be factoring. Now, in order to see if factoring is possible, we have to try and use something called the discriminant. The discriminant is basically, in short words, a formula you use to calculate whether or not the quadratic has 2 solutions, 1 solution, or no solution. Or it can be used, in this case, to see whether or not the quadratic is factorable. So the formula is b squared minus 4ac. So b in this case is negative 4, so it'd be negative 4 the whole squared minus 4 times a, which in this case would be 3, times c, which is 15. This is equivalent to 16 minus 12. We would group this, minus 12 times 15, which is equivalent to 16 minus 180. Which is negative 164. Because this number is negative, because you see that this number has a negative value, that means that this problem has no real solution. If the number was 0, for example, if d was 0, then it would have 1 solution. If the number here was above 0, if it was, let's say d was greater than 0, that's a poorly drawn d, but let's say it was greater than 0, then it would be 2 solutions. Okay guys, now we're going to talk about another equation that I have gotten for you. This is practically a quadratic equation. The way you can tell is because it has a variable squared. This n in this situation is a, or it's x, sorry. The 5 would be a, the 12 would be b, and the 6 would be c. So in this situation, this would be the discriminant. D stands for discriminant. Discriminant's formula is b squared minus 4ac. So then when you plug it in, d equals b squared, which is 144, times minus 4, times a, which is 5, times c, which is 6, you would get d. In this case, d would be equal to 24. This means that we have 2 solutions, and one way you can tell whether or not it can be factorable is if this number, if d can be square rooted, and if it's a perfect square, that means it can be factorable. It's factorable. It can be factored out. If it's not, like for example, if you see 24 here, for example, you would have 6. Oops, my mouse is glitching out today. You would have 6 as one number and 4, which would give you 2 and 2, which would group up, and you would get 2 square root 6. That's a 6, by the way, as the answer for that. So that's not a perfect square, so it's not factorable. One way you can figure what it is using the quadratic formula. This is another method that you can use for figuring out the formula, or figuring out the solutions to it, which is basically where the parabola meets the x-axis. Two other ways you can figure out the solutions are the perfect square method, like completing the square method, and finding the perfect square. So if for finding the perfect square, if there is no n, if there's no 12n, for example, in this scenario, then we would be using that. But because there is, we can't use that formula. Now, if for completing the square, if n squared, if a, the value for a is 1, and if the value for b is even, then you can complete the square. So that's one good thing to remember. Let's try and solve this. The formula for the quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of d all over 2a. Many people may not remember it as the square root of d, but in this case d would just be b squared minus 4ac. So this is the same thing as saying negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's the same thing as this. The reason why I wrote square root of d is because we've already figured out the solution for it, and we've also simplified the solution for it, for the discriminant. So negative b in this case would be negative 12 plus or minus 2 root 6 all over 2 times a, which is 2 times 5, which is 10. And this would be the equation. Now this simplifies out to negative 6, write this down, plus or minus square root of 6 all over 5. Because we're just dividing each term by 2, because they're all divisible by 2. So this would be the solution, but how you would write this would be x equals French bracket negative 6 minus the square root of 6 all over 5. You put the negative part of the solution first, because that's the lesser number. It's the lesser value. Then you would have negative 6 plus square root of 6 all over 5. And then you close the squarely bracket, or French bracket. So this is the solution to our problem. I hope you had a wonderful understanding of this now, and I will see you all in the next video. Thank you.